Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well and having a great Sunday so far. In today's forecast update, we're going to be looking at our severe weather threat for the next couple of days, and then we'll take a look at what we could expect across the continental United States for the next really 1 to 2 weeks, and especially as we get into the kind of middle of May. So we'll be mainly looking at that in the video, and we've finally kind of reached our end of the stretch of severe weather, especially across the central U.S. So that's a good thing for sure. But still, we're going to continue to see severe weather threats as we get into May, and especially really over the next couple of weeks as well. But I will have timestamps up in the video, so feel free to skip to any section y'all want to see. And without further ado, let's go and get started with the update for today. So first here, we'll be looking at our analysis of our past kind of several days across the not central, but the continental United States. And so starting out here, you can see our date up here in the top left hand corner. So we'll start out with Tuesday. And then we had on Tuesday, last Tuesday, on the 29th of April, we had our troughing starting to, our kind of main trough up here, starting to move up into Canada, and that led to a severe weather threat across the central U.S. And then going on even further here, going into April 30th, and then eventually the 1st of May on Thursday, you can see kind of subtle troughing, not really subtle, but more intense troughing up here into the north central U.S. and pretty defined troughing out here into the southern U.S. as well. But our main lead trough way up here into the north central U.S. and that continues to move southward, and that would bring us to today, where we have our low pressure, as you can see here, Saturday out across Illinois, and that has been bringing our thunderstorms and showers across much of the eastern U.S. and especially the southeastern and portions of the kind of mid-Atlantic, where we've been seeing some severe weather. And that is once again our pattern we have been dealing with for the past several days as we've exited April and started out May. So now looking at the outlook for Sunday. And so we do have a pretty large marginal risk out here all the way from southern Pennsylvania and into Ohio, down to the south and throughout the mid-Atlantic, into the eastern Carolinas, and then down into Georgia and Florida. Then out further to the west, we do have a marginal risk out here into portions of West Texas and into New Mexico. And so we do have three separate tornado risks here, all 2% risk up here into portions of the mid-Atlantic, then into Georgia and the Florida Peninsula, and then once again into New Mexico. We do have a 5% wind risk out here into New Mexico and Texas, and then out here with our marginal risk into the eastern U.S. And then finally looking at our hail risk, same deal there, 5% risk out here into New Mexico and Texas, and a 5% out here into the eastern U.S. for Sunday. And then looking at Monday, May 5th, 2025, and we do have a slight risk down here into Texas and then into extreme southeastern New Mexico with a marginal risk around that into Texas, New Mexico, and then into Oklahoma and Colorado. Then out here to the east into the Florida Peninsula, we do have a marginal risk here as well. And then up into portions of the northeast and mid-Atlantic, we have another marginal risk for Monday. And so we don't have any tornado wind or hail risk at this time because it is just out of range where the Storm Prediction Center issues these outlooks. So we can just see the probabilistic here, but we do have a 15% risk down here into Texas and a hatch risk around that. And that hatched area means a 10% or greater probability of significant severe weather occurring within 25 miles of a point with the areas of dashed lines. So that is where we're going to see the most concentrated area of severe weather for Monday. So just keep that in mind when we're looking at some of the weather models in just one moment. So now looking at the NAM model across for the Eastern US especially, but we'll go and switch there to our 0Z run, our latest run here. And so you can see your timestamps and your days up here kind of into the top left of your screen. And so continuing that on as we have this system, this low pressure, our troughing here into the eastern US start to finally move out. You will have plenty of thunderstorms and showers across the southeast, even into the mid-Atlantic as well. Then as we get into the afternoon hours for Sunday, we could see some more, once again, redevelopment of storms into the eastern Carolinas, Florida, and once again, even up into the mid Atlantic later on in the evening on Sunday. And then we also have uh, some showers and storms out here into maybe Colorado and New Mexico as we get into late Sunday. And then going on a little bit further here as we get into Monday, the 3 kilometer NAM wants to show storms and showers getting developed already by the kind of morning hours. And then as you get into the afternoon hours, you could see some more intense development out here across Texas and New Mexico, but mainly with that being into the daytime hours, but still as you get into the nighttime hours, plenty of development of storms out there into New Mexico and Texas will be possible. And then looking out to the east into the mid-Atlantic for Monday, you could see some development by the late morning hours into the afternoon hours, especially out here across Pennsylvania and even into southern New England. You could see some showers there, but definitely some thunderstorms. Some may be isolated by Monday evening, showing up on the 3 kilometer NAM once again there. And most of those could linger around for quite some time into the mid-Atlantic. So um, I would not be surprised if some areas do kind of have a isolated flash flooding risk, especially if you have any of these storms really linger over areas for quite some time, because this will be somewhat of a stationary, not really stationary, but you will have um, definitely a few rounds of showers and storms into the mid-Atlantic once again for Monday. Now we're going to be taking a look at the GFS operational model and looking to see what we could expect as we get into this upcoming week. And if we look here and we go into Monday, you can see our low pressure bringing some of that severe weather further to the south into Texas and New Mexico, and also our low pressure with our troughing out here into the mid-Atlantic, delivering a low and severe weather threat across those areas. Continuing that on, even into Tuesday and midweek, you could see that low pressure hang around into the central U.S., and that would probably bring maybe some flash flooding into these areas if some of these areas are able to receive multiple rounds of rain. And I could definitely see that being possible into Oklahoma. And as we saw, I believe it was a few days ago, where we had multiple kind of MCSs, multiple MCSs, I guess that's what you would call it, move into those areas. And that led to some significant flash flooding where you had almost multiple just heavy rain rounds moving into those areas. So that is just something to consider as you get throughout the early portions of this upcoming week. But continuing that on there, pretty quiet for the most part. Maybe just your average early May kind of set up across the southeast. Maybe some daily thunderstorms and showers possible. And continuing that on even further, no really significant systems show up on the GFS weather model, the 18Z run that is, as we get into the middle and even latter half of this week. So that's a good thing for sure. We need it to be as quiet as possible, but still could see some moisture just hanging around here into the Gulf, and really the Gulf Coast states as well. But even the GFS does not show really anything significant, excuse me, as we get into later this week. But we'll have to watch that as we get to early next week. But once again, GFS does not show much. If you look on the European as well, the 12Z run, same kind of situations here as we get into midweek and later on into this week. Just some leftover moisture hanging around in these areas across the southeast and southern U.S. And still, as we even get to next week, not a whole lot looks to show up, but maybe something by early next week shows up here on the European. But still, it's kind of getting pretty far out in our range here. We'll take a look at some of the ensemble weather models in just one moment. And I'll be looking at the EPS ensembles. And so troughing and low pressure, areas of low pressure is represented in the blue, and areas of ridging and higher pressure is represented in the red colors. So if we continue this on, and as we get into early into this upcoming week, even into midweek, you could see you will have your system starting to move out to the east and from the mid-Atlantic, and then into the southwestern U.S. You will have that system and troughing hanging around there into those areas. And so continuing on even further, you will have kind of subtle troughing into the southeastern U.S., and this could actually bring some below average temperatures into the southeastern U.S. with probably above average temperatures into quite a bit of the northwestern U.S., as that's been the case for quite some time now. And so if we continue that on even further, even getting into the 10th, 11th, and 12th of May, you could see some troughing hanging around here into the southeastern U.S. with ridging hanging on quite a bit for the northwestern and really western U.S. as a whole. So that's just something to consider there as we get into mid-May, and then even going into May 15th and 16th. We're getting very far out here, especially on the ensembles, but it looks like we could see some ridging up here into the Great Lakes states, but other than that, nothing too crazy at this time as far as any major systems. So that's a good thing for sure. We will always appreciate the quiet times, but that is going to be it for the ensembles there. Now, lastly, looking at the EPS ensembles again, and we'll be looking at our temperature anomalies, or surface temperature anomalies, excuse me. And so if we go to midday today on Sunday, you can see below average temperatures into portions of the Ohio Valley and into the southern U.S. and out here into the north, kind of southwestern and northwestern U.S. Continuing on there into Monday and then even into Tuesday. Below average temperatures could actually move into the south central U.S. and portions of the kind of west central U.S. There for Tuesday. Continuing on even further into Wednesday and Thursday, below average temperatures could actually once again stay around in the south central U.S. and even into the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes states, even portions of the Northeast could see below average temperatures. Then as you get into later this week, into this weekend, below average temperatures looks like it'll dominate quite a bit of the southeastern U.S., eastern U.S., and south central U.S. as a whole, with above average temperatures dominating the western U.S. and north central U.S. Getting into the 11th, 12th, and 13th, below average temperatures continue to stay around into the southern U.S., with above average temperatures starting to really move into the north central U.S. Then as we even get to the 14th and 15th of May, it looks like we could see maybe a little bit of a cool down across some of these areas that have been seeing constant above average temperatures, especially for the western U.S. and even north central U.S. So that's something to consider there, but we are getting pretty far out with our time here. So although we will probably see above average temperatures into quite a bit of the north central U.S. and western U.S. throughout May, I do think we could see some relief in these areas towards the middle of May and maybe a little bit after that, because we could see either very weak ridging or very weak troughing into much of these areas, except for the north central U.S. and kind of Great Lakes states towards the middle of May, but still a lot could change between then. And once again, I could see it either going both ways because of what the ensembles are showing now. And as you can see here, if we look at our high anomalies, you can see very weak ridging here into the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes states, and Northeast. So once again, I can see that going both ways, especially out here into the western U.S. with kind of very subtle troughing showing up out here. So I do think we could see some relief in some of these areas, but that'll be about it for our discussion. So once again, that'll be it for today's forecast on Sunday. And so I do appreciate all of y'all watching, and I will continue to keep y'all updated on our severe weather risk across some of these areas. Not some of these areas, especially across the south central U.S. and eastern U.S. As we get them. And I do think we could potentially see a return, not really return, but an uptick in severe weather as we get towards maybe the end of this month. Because the middle of the month and as we get into the next several days, it looks to be pretty quiet. So we'll continue to watch that and make sure things stay quiet. Hopefully they do, because it seems like we've been dealing with severe weather for quite some time now. Not just severe weather, but major severe weather events. So I hope that continues to tick down. But once again, I appreciate all of y'all watching, and that'll be it for the update tonight. And I will try to have another video out sometime this week. But that'll be it, and I hope y'all have a great rest of y'all Sunday.